Welcome to another episode of Salesforce Connect, where we meet with different partners in the Salesforce ecosystem. And today I have the honor of hosting John Lynch from the Nuage Group. How are you, John?
Doing great, and I have the honor of being a guest and getting to speak with you, sir.
Yeah, it's great. It's great to meet. Great to see you again. So, for our audience that is not familiar with you, tell us a little bit about yourself and your background and who you are.
Sure, my name is John Lynch, and I'm the managing partner of the Nuage Group. And do Salesforce consulting, but we really focus on managed services, providing the support, being the admin for companies that don't want or don't need, or for some other reason, traditional having an in-house admin isn't for them. There's a whole lot of reasons that it's advantageous to outsource your admin and light dev work. I won't rabbit hole us into that right now, but that's our main bread and butter is providing support, being a managed service provider for companies that are using Salesforce. We also do larger scale projects. We have the capabilities of doing implementations. Quick start implementations is another place where we really shine. But we do projects. That's just not our main thing. And when we do them, we try to stay within a few verticals: oil field services, oil and gas, energy, and then we do the financial sector as well. And we do nonprofits. We have a couple of nonprofit clients. That's mainly as a as a charitable exercise. We don't really try to target nonprofits, but when one comes up that we believe in their cause, we do like to help when we can.
Love it. So no, I think that's a great topic that you touch upon. I think most companies always struggle with the should we hire a Salesforce admin and have someone
Yeah,
in house that really knows our org versus should we maybe hire an expert like Nuage and have fractional support. And then Salesforce has grown to a lot of specialization where you don't just need the core admin skills, but some companies need like CPQ, Revenue Cloud,
exactly.
Cloud that it's hard to sometimes find those skill set in one person. So how do you think companies should go about hiring um, an admin or developer versus hiring someone like Nuage where they can do more of
Okay.
a managed service, functional
That is
support?
a great question, and I hope I don't take too long in the answer, but it's one that I've given a lot of thought to, and we've adjusted our business model around it. There's a couple of different kind of clients. Well, first of all, let me back up and talk about the advantages of outsourcing some of the admin and support. Even if you hire the best person in the world, they are bounded by their experience and competencies, and they're also bounded by their time. They sleep, they go on vacation, they take PTO days. So if you have one person, you're kind of stuck with outages and gaps of their availability, and you're also constrained by their skill set. And there's nothing bad; nobody can know everything. So the value proposition for outsourcing that with us or anybody else that does this is that you have a team of people that have almost boundless capabilities because it's a lot of different people, and you have coverage across the boards too. We never have one. We do have when somebody becomes a managed service client, they do get a designated account lead, but the team that supports them under that lead is very flexible and always available. So that's a huge plus. Now, in specificity of skills, the way we handle it, at least, is we have built a team that has employees, we two part-time employees, contractors, and then freelancers. And then we have a couple of vendors as well. So I call it elastic staffing. It's flexible, we're covered, but we don't have bench resources sitting around. I mean, I have several good CPQ folks, couple of them that are getting their chops way up in AI, and they're pay to play. We use them as we need them to satisfy the needs of our customers on projects. So I guess
Love
the
it.
bottom line is if I was a go ahead.
No, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to say the bottom line is if I was an IT director at a company and Salesforce was under my responsibilities, I would more than likely outsource the support, maybe have one admin on site that was able to manage or work with the vendor, but it's almost impossible to have all your needs covered right now with an in-house Salesforce person, unless you're underutilizing it and not getting the ROI you'd like.
Got it. So can we maybe take it to the beginning? I know you come from more the established consulting shops. You work at
Mhm.
Ian Hewitt, and then you transition more into the Salesforce ecosystem. So what prompted you to make that transition into Salesforce? Like, what do you see? What do you see back then? Maybe can you talk a little bit about how Nuage started in during those times?
That is a great question. I'm really happy to talk about it because I don't get the opportunity that much. I got into IT at the tail end of the 90s when I was a lot younger. Um, I was a programmer. I worked on ERP systems for the most part. Remember PeopleSoft, Oracle, and just worked my way up
Yeah.
the responsibility line. I found myself an IT director a few years back, and I was responsible for several in-house applications. I always tried to stay with ERP, finance, HR applications because they're transferable across industries. Early in my career, I watched the oil companies go up and down a lot, being based in Houston. I said, I want to stay industry agnostic and stick with the ERPs, the CRMs, the HR, and finance. That was just a conscious decision when I was much younger, and it worked out. So I was IT director. Salesforce was one of my responsibilities, and I just fell in love with it. We didn't have a huge budget. It was a startup. We ended up becoming very successful, but I did not have a big tooling budget. So I started just building our tools out of Salesforce in-house, and it worked great. And I thought to myself, if I ever really decide to go off and get out of the corporate world and get into consulting, I'd consulted before with consulting firms. I said, if I'm ever going to do my own thing, it's going to be based in Salesforce because the barrier to entry is so low. The adoption out in the field is just so great. It doesn't make a lot of sense to get into any other technology if you're trying to shift careers and start a consulting firm. So that was the conscious decision. The way I got involved with Nuance specifically is I had my independent consulting firm going, and then by chance at a Houston user group, I met the original founder of the Nuage Group, a guy named Kip Van. He really had it rocking and rolling, and he had a couple of projects he really needed help on. So I just hopped in as sub for him. And then we started to do a corp to corp partnership, and I started helping him run operations. And then he decided to exit. And so I put together a investment group and we purchased it. That was in 2020, May of 2020. And most recently, we had spun up a software offering specific to the medical staffing industry. And we were running that out of Nuage, but now we split into two entities, the software company, of which I'm an equity partner, and the consulting firm, which is the traditional Nuage consulting, which I am actually running as the managing partner.
Love it. Tell me a little bit about Nuage and how you're running things today. Some of the criticism in the Salesforce ecosystem is that it can be a little crowded. There's a lot of partners, a lot of consulting shops. How do you guys differentiate yourself, and what do you think is the value proposition that you can deliver that not many others are doing today in the market?
That is fantastic. Well, thing number one is you really can't be everything to everybody. You can't be the days of being a Salesforce consulting firm. Those are kind of over because it's such a broad spectrum of things, and the way that people are really focusing now on the AI and the industry specific clouds. It's really, you can't just do Salesforce. So the question then begs itself: do you want to be specifically working in a vertical like oil and gas or medical or finance, or do you want to do what we're doing, which is really the vertical we're in is Salesforce admin? So think about that for a minute. We're not becoming industry specific gurus in any one industry or two industries. What we're doing is doubling down on the Salesforce knowledge at the admin, config, and light dev level to where we can backfill the need to have a large support staff in your company. So that's a little bit of a unique differentiator. I'm not saying that we're generic, but I'm saying is we're really making sure the Salesforce skills stay very sharp so we can apply the also, we retain several very good BAs that do know industries because being based in Houston, we are in energy and oil and gas. It's just a fact of life. And also finance and medical. We stay in those three verticals quite a bit. We do a little bit of manufacturing. We have a couple of manufacturing clients, but the bread and butter is oil and gas here. But the differentiator, it's two things. It's focusing on support, and because I spent 20 years managing support, being a director of internal operations, everything I've done has been in operations. So the real number one differentiator with us as a support group is the fact that I run it not like a consulting firm, but like a operations department. So we have specific designated account leads for every 5 to 10 of our clients, depending on the complexity of the client, the size. They have a technical lead, a functional lead, and below them, they have this large shared pool of specialists. So we run it like an operations shop. Most consulting firms will give you a consultant. Hey, here's your guy, right? And how far away is that from actually just hiring somebody? Yeah, it's some. I mean, you probably have a little more depth, but no, we have an organization behind each of our clients with a designated lead. I think that's a very big difference in my opinion because we're boring. We run it like just an operations group. You know, there's nothing very exciting about that, but it gets the job done.
Love it, love it. And you mentioned your specialty in life sciences, healthcare. I mean, oil and gas, energy being local to Houston. What do you think are some of the challenges and maybe also opportunities for these industries to adopt Salesforce or to improve some of the things are happening in the Salesforce ecosystem within those industries that sometimes, for example, oil and gas might be
Yeah.
slow to adopt change and
It
technology.
That is funny. That is one of the things that you'll notice industry specific. Way back before I got into Salesforce, when I was working with Hewitt Associates and we were doing implementations of other types of ERPs, we found that industries, although they're not identical, you'd find that the more manufacturing oil and gas industries were a little generationally behind the higher tech industries. Say, for example, financial industries like Prudential or ones like that, Bank of America, would be more adoptive toward the technology than, say, British Petroleum or one of our clients, Refined Technologies. They just they're not as quick to adopt technology, and it's a little more old school, if you will. You know, spreadsheets, phone calls, emails. So the adoption is a challenge, specifically in the oil field services. Now, field service lightning's helped a lot because it's made it easier for the guys that actually do the work. Instead of having a bunch of paper and they're writing on and getting signatures, it's their phone. I mean, that's or it's a company issued iPad. That is a game changer. Field service lightning really was a game changer for the oil field services industry. I think that's really all I had to say about the underserved industries. But I just will say that the more labor heavy technology manufacturing oil field just do seem to be less adoptive. But when you give them a tool that really is a productivity enhancer, they will adopt it. So I guess it takes the fluff out. It
I mean,
has to actually really have a good ROI, but if it does, they will adopt it.
and can you maybe dive deeper there when you say your ROI? What are the outcomes you expect? How do you measure or how do you try to align with the business objectives with what Salesforce is delivering for your clients?
Okay, that is a great one. Thanks for bringing that out. A guy I used to work with, a mentor actually, said one thing that has stuck with me my whole career. If you can't measure it, you can't manage it. Right? I mean, you're just guessing at what to do unless you got have good measures. So one of the main things that really helps, and I'm going to focus on oil field services, the guys that go in and do the refinery cleaning, the chemical cleaning, the heat exchanger repairs, that kind of stuff. One of our clients is really big in that industry. And there's a lot of moving parts, a lot of costs, and a lot of revenue streams. They expanded vertically in their industry to where they do everything from equipment rentals to actually providing the crew that does the cleaning to, of course, the chemicals themselves. and they have to time that. You don't just, throw a switch and shut down a refinery. They have to plan to do everything at once. There's a lot of government regulation. They have to limit their downtime to the seconds to maximize the amount of time that they're up. So using Salesforce to help manage the time slots, the projects, the crews, the equipment rentals, everything, as well as doing the upfront sales and lining out the projects is key because they need it to be integrated. Now, obviously, there's some fit for purpose integrated systems that are used in that industry as well, but it all flows through Salesforce. That's their number one hub, if you will, where they know what's going on, what people will be where, what crews are being deployed. And this is a highly timed thing. Now, operationally, that's one thing, but we've had to help our client in that industry tailor their reports and dashboards to where they can get a real picture of what's going on. A lot of that has to do with revenue recognition, because if they're doing $1 million project, it's not close $1 million, right? It could be 50,000 a month for 2 years or something like that. And we've had to tailor their executive dashboards to where they're getting a clear picture where they can make clear decisions. We've been very fortunate with that client because their CEO and chief operating officer are very into the technology and can give us incredibly good insight as to what they actually want to see when they're looking at a dashboard. Yeah, coming back to, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. And we need to have all the inputs coming in correctly and then portraying them correctly to the dashboards and reports they use. And that's huge because they have made strategic decisions to pull back on some offerings, to push some other offerings, to rearrange how they do some of their workflows around what they're seeing in the data that's being provided to them on their dashes.
Love it. And I know we're almost on time here. The last question for me, in terms of the technologies that are emerging, AI, data cloud, there's a lot of automation becoming more central to the Salesforce platform. How's Nuage advising the Nuage Group advising clients to prepare and leverage these innovations? And how do you stay up to date with all this change?
We definitely carve out time to keep ourselves up to speed. I'm probably the furthest behind guy. I make sure that everyone on staff and everyone that's working with me is able to conceptually and practically understand the most current stuff that's going on, especially in AI. I mean, that's we're using it internally to help streamline our operations. And on the software side, the company I mentioned earlier, man, it's practically driven by AI because of the resume. It's not just resume parsing, it's understanding the content of resumes,
Right.
understanding the content of job postings, putting them together appropriately. We're on the cutting edge of AI in that company. I'd proudly say, because that it took a couple of years to get there and a lot of coding. As far as advice to my clients, I know I need to be quick, but I think this is important to say. Got to start with knowing what it is you're trying to do, right? I mean, knowing the capabilities of the technology is important, but then, yeah, AI especially, and then just hyper automation in general, is becoming a buzzword almost. And you have people that want to just put it in because we need the competitive advantage but there's no strategy, there's no plan, there's no what are we getting out of this. So begin with the end in mind, to paraphrase 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. You got to know where you want to go before you can start, right? But it's the same with AI, it's the same with anything. I will also mention that the low code, no code, enabling the actual users to build their own processes, that's incredibly powerful and a very good thing. But there's also a double-edged sword too, because without the appropriate change controls and approvals in place at a company and peer review oversight, you could be getting some very wrong data being presented to decision makers. So it's a trade-off. You understand what they're doing, understand the goal, and then do it correctly with the appropriate amount of controls in place. We're at a golden age of technology, I believe.
Love it. No, this was great, John. Thank you so much for sharing your time and knowledge with the audience. If people want to connect with you or find out more about the Nuage Group, how can they find out about you and your company?
Well, the nuagegroup.com. And I'm also on LinkedIn with John Lynch. look for me under the Nuage Group. And then lastly, if you are sales in the Salesforce community, my profile's right up there. Just look under for the Trailblazers. I'm there. I founded and manage the Woodlands, Texas user group in case anybody's in the area. And there's lots of ways to find me. Look for John Lynch and Salesforce together, and you can't miss me. And
Love it.
you can always get a hold of Alan if you need to find me too.
Love it. This was great, John. Thank you so much. Hope you have a great rest of your day.
You too. Thanks a lot for the invitation. It's been great talking with you.